All right, so I'll just say everything's working over here. Everything's working over here. See, it's way louder. It's way louder when I look at it on a restream. So maybe I didn't need the gain, but when I record the video, it just sounds real quiet. Like when I do a test copy and like record myself, it seems just way quiet. So anywho, okay, so this is entitled, I don't like how my hair looks in this video. That's the name of the video. This is entitled New Year, Same Foolish Monk. So, tools for transformation. I think there's lots of different things you can do. And the one thing I've realized on my spiritual path and on my occult journey, as I sit back and pontificate upon it, is that you can really get into the weeds. What I mean by getting into the weeds is that you can just get caught up in shit while interesting, while intriguing and fascinating, has no bearing on your personal journey, right? But that's my view on it, right? But there's stuff that's, I don't know, I'm getting a weird, I never can get the lighting right in here. I can never get the lighting right. It looks like I'm just in a noir film sometimes. I'm just in the shadows, but there's light around me. It's very noir-y sometimes. I don't know. Eventually, I've got new microphones. Eventually, I'll get better lighting because I'm just using fluorescent lights, and those aren't what you want necessarily for filming. Anyways, it just looks so, I don't know, maybe this is just how it looks in OBS, just like the volume. Anyways, talking about getting off into the weeds, right? So on one's spiritual journey, on one's occult path, there's a lot of places you can go, right? There's a lot of off the main river, there's a lot of different tributaries and streams and creeks and brooks that you can delve into, and nothing is wrong with these things, but I draw a line in the sand, right? I draw a line in the sand when it's like stuff out there in the mainstream and just getting caught up in breaking it down, even from a cult level. Because, yes, you can make a case that for some specific person, breaking that down is part of their journey, which it is. If they're doing it, it's part of their journey. But what I'm here to talk about is, it's like, old man, get off my lawn, or like, jazz isn't music. I know how I sound. I'm self-reflective enough to say what I'm about to say is kind of like, it's like a purist in baseball. It's like, oh, the pitcher has to bat, right? That eventually that went away. But I'm a purist in terms of transformation of the mind, I guess you could say. And while, again, there's lots of different avenues and streams and brooks and streets you can go down, the middle way, right? If you go straight up the tree of life, the fastest way, right? You're not off on detours and shit. So I'm about, not necessarily it's about the fastest way, but however, I can say however now. My mom said that recently. She's like, I don't like to say but like, however, I don't know, I forgot she put it in the moment, but I was like, oh yeah, however. I like however. However is a great word. Shout out to you, however. However, let's keep moving. And I really feel, I want to put a hat on because I don't like how my hair looks right now. But this is the shit, folks. It's like, that's babysitters, right? This shit I was talking about recently. A babysitter. Why does it bother me? Who the fuck cares? It's just an objective observation I have right now that it's like, oh, like my hair doesn't look good for whatever. But it's my perspective. This is what all this shit is. I don't really believe in solutions. And what I mean by that is solutions aren't actually what we need lots of times. We just need a better perspective. We need a better point of view. We need better perception and awareness of a situation, of a feeling, of a thought, that we need a solution to it, right? Because that's just the back and forth that we're always caught up in about like, this happened, okay, problem, solution, right? That's the yin and yang. That's the duality, right? Always trying to solve problems. And I get it. We're here, we're on Malkuth, we're in the Matrix. Matrix is just, oh, you didn't want more problems? Okay, here's problems, right? I get it. But leaving that cycle is very, very important. Leaving the cycle of problem, solution, problem. Because if there's a problem and then you have a solution, then your solution is going to lead to another problem. See the problem with that? And I'm being literal because, within every solution, there's a problem. And within every problem, there's a solution. They're tied to each other. You can't be like, oh, well, it's solved, right? Because then something else will get unsolved. And you'll have to deal with that, and it just keeps going. It's endless and endless. It's like birth and death, in breath, out breath. It's another manifestation of that, And we're going away from that, or I am going away from that. I want to get out of it's like you want to get out of the wheel of the Dharma. You want to get out of the wheel of time, right? We're in the wheel of time right now. We're experiencing the wheel of time, right? This is the yin and yang. We're in the dualistic wheel of time. Right, where it's like, oh, up and down. Oh, hey, there was an up. Oh, where was the down? Oh, we're currently experiencing that, right? And the sage, the mystic, they're the cultists. They're working to get the fuck out of that cycle. And y'all, listen, that's some cool points. You can do some cool stuff. You eat toffee cookies. You could fuck. You can get a cool car. There's lots of cool shit that happens, but at the end of the day, at the end of the life, it's all hollow. It's all empty. Not that it doesn't have something to it, right? But it's like, in the biggest thing, it's hollow. And our thoughts are hollow. All this shit is hollow. And hollow meaning that there's no substance behind it. There's no real, and you're hollow too. You're empty as well. If you didn't realize that you have no substance behind you, right? What we think we are versus what we are is just funny because it's just all these hollow thoughts that we've conditioned ourselves. Now there could be external conditioning, but ultimately we accepted what others said about oh, you're a great poet. Oh, you're this. You're like, I am a great poet. Yeah, okay. And we've accepted these hollow, empty, with no real solidity in the way we think they are, especially thoughts and words. We think we give deference to some thoughts, but not others. And then in terms of solidity, we're like, oh, well, words. That's why it's like the old shit about actions speak louder than words, right? And you could say that about lots of shit. And actions, listen, we can go all day about that. That doesn't mean shit either. But we give a certain solidity to our thoughts, a certain solidity to our words, that really there's no basis to do that, right? Like the fact that people look at politicians and still just feel solidity with the things these niggas say, it's just funny to me, right? It's just really, really funny. Because if you really zoom out or really just look at the whole thing, none of the things those people say are actually solid, right? And I don't mean it in terms of states of matter. I mean in terms of how they'll line up with reality, right? And as we talked about before, you throw in some lining up with some misalignment, then it's like you can't completely reject both, right? Because he did help with these houses, but all that other stuff he was talking, he completely didn't do, and they're paired together, so it's like you can't completely outright reject it, right? If you told someone to get you some food from a restaurant and they got half your order, but they forgot one part, it's like, well, I'm disappointed, but at least they got half the order. Well, that's kind of how it is, But if they didn't get anything, you're like, what? It's like, can I have my money back? Like, no. What? You didn't get my order and I don't get my money back? Like, nope. People would revolt if that was the case. And sometimes it is the case, but only the long-term buying in keeps people buying into hearing these hollow sentiments from politicians or hollow sentiments from people you're in a relationship with or whatever. And we give lots of deference to thoughts as being like, oh, this is a brilliant thought. We should do this to like help these people. No, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a brilliant thought. Before I get into tools for transformation, and this is why I always write down things I want to say, and I even how it's set up. I got a list for myself that y'all can see. We're going to talk about mind tools, subconscious tools, bodywork tools, and ritualistic tools. But before we get into that, let's talk about thoughts for a second. Stop giving such deference, stop giving such priority to thoughts. You know, the 40-year-old virgin where it's like you're putting pussy on the pedestal. That's what we do to our thoughts. That's what we do to our feelings. We put them on a pedestal like they're like this amazing thing, right? And I don't mean just negative. I don't mean just like the positive ones, the negative ones too. We highlight those, right? We give them, I have this concept that, stop being impressed by things. Like, seriously, stop being impressed by shit. Like, let it be something like an angel coming down in front of you. Even with that, like, don't even be impressed by that, Like, the homie Bodhidharma, in one of his books I was reading recently, he was talking about, like, if Buddha manifested right in front of you, first of all, all appearances are illusions. So if Buddha manifests in front of you, right, it's like, that's your mind's conception of Buddha, one. It could be some or sort of other entity manifesting in front of you as Buddha, two. And three, don't be impressed by it. Even if it actually is the Buddha and you confirmed, okay, are you the Buddha? Yes, I am actually the Buddha. Here's my Buddha identification card. Whatever it is that this nigga proves he is the Buddha. Don't be impressed by that. Whatever that entity is, right? Assuming it is actually the Buddha, whatever your mind. That's why there's a slogan. It's like if you ever meet the Buddha, like kill him, right? Which seems like, what? Why would I kill the Buddha? Relax, folks. We're not actually killing the Buddha. What it's saying is the concept, like if you meet the Buddha, it's like you've created this concept of him in your mind, and that's what you're meeting. So you need to kill that concept in your mind, right? Because it's like whatever it is, like no matter how majestic or holy it is, it's like that's your external, right? Like assume it's an external manifestation, right? That's your external manifestation of what the Buddha looks like. So you need to like destroy that, right? Because that's something that like you've limited what the Buddha stands for, what the Buddha like, what the message, I don't know, message is the right word, but you've taken something that can't be described and you described it some way with your mind, right? That's why you have to kill the Buddha when you meet it, because it's like, oh, you put a limitation on it, so you need to kill that, right? So this is why our thoughts are hollow. Not that's why. I just forgot how I got into the killing the Buddha thing. Because there's nothing behind them. There is no actual substance to them. And this is like the irony of the world where if anybody saw Glass Onion, I like how they did that, how like the main character, Edward Norton's character, it's like he's this genius, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, like homeboy Benoit is like, this dude's an idiot. And he explains why he's actually an idiot. But like he's gone under this guise of being this genius, right? And it was in like Benoit saw through and he's like, nah, this nigga's an idiot. He is such a dummy. Here's why he's a dummy. This dummy, right? And it was so beautiful because that's what the world does. It tricks you into thinking that geniuses are idiots, true geniuses, right? Like spiritual teacher geniuses, right? People who are connected to the other side geniuses, right? As psychotics, as schizophrenics, right? All this sort of shit, right? But they're actually just really, 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 really far in the deep end, right? In modern society, as cool as the New Age movement is, still, like, you got to go to places like Brazil where they have specific places where it's like, yo, you've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but it's like, yo, you got just psychic powers. You need to get under control. That's the issue here. It's like you're not under full control of your power, so they're running you, and the spirits are using your lack of awareness of your powers, your lack of control of your powers, to like run you and just make your life complete living hell. So how do I get onto that? Brazil? But wait, what is that book? Where is it? What is that book? It's fuck. I thought it would be right there. Huh. I don't know. But there's a book where it's like these parapsychologists go to Brazil to these clinics, and like, they talk about everything, I was just talking about how, like, and again, I always have to quote this quote: the mystic swims in the water the schizophrenic drowns in. Right? Why is the schizophrenic drown in the waters? Because the mystic does practices, tools for transformation, so they are able to swim in these waters and not control their experiences, but can deal with the experiences that the further they go in the deep ends of the unknown, right? The other world, the ethers, not that they're not actually tethered to shore, but, if you almost get bitten by a seal, you can come back and you can got to deal with it. You can still, and then go back out in the water and do your laps, So your thoughts are hollow is the main point of this. Is your thoughts are hollow, and the world will make you feel that your dumbest thoughts are brilliant and your most brilliant thoughts are dumb. And when I say brilliant thoughts being dumb, I'm talking about your intuitive brilliance, right? That if you deny that long enough, not only does it not come up as much, right? Because, you're not activating that muscle memory. Also, you just, you're just like, you'll be like, oh, ego thoughts. Yeah, let's, because the world's like, oh yeah, ego thoughts. You do need to get more makeup. You do need to do this. You know what, bitch? You need to fucking do this. You know what, nigga? You need to get those fucking shoes. And there's nothing wrong with makeup. There's nothing wrong with shoes. Nothing's wrong with clothes, right? When I go on these things, there's nothing wrong with these things, right? Just the intention of why we're doing them. Because from a deep level, really anything you should understand. Even if you're like, I should punch this person in the face. Like, I understand why I am, though. I understand why I am punching him in the face, but, I'm still doing it, and then eventually you hope to, you feel it's important, transform this behavior. But, we're conditioned to be like, oh yeah, look at that out there. That is brilliant. But it could be actually the stupidest idea ever. But it's like, oh, we're told it's brilliant. Patrice O'Neal, who's one of my favorite comedians of all time, shout out to Patrice O'Neal. Gag. Patrice Gig. He would always talk about movies when he'd be on Opie and Anthony. Right, he always they would get into discussions about good movies, classic movies, movies they loved, right? Great scenes from movies, things like that. And so a movie I've yet to see that actually this piqued my interest to see it again is Waterworld. I never saw that movie, right? But as Patrice brings up, it was always put out there that's that's not a good movie, right? But Patrice he's like, I love that movie. Why is this not a good movie, right? It's been out there that's this is not a good movie, but he's like, I love that movie. It's what about this movie is not a good movie? And it made me really think about yeah, there is a lot of movies that probably are considered terrible by some mainstream standard that are actually amazing movies, and vice versa, right? He made a good point about, what was he talking about? He'd rather watch, it was 2 Vietnam movies. He was saying, the movie, what's the one? Colonel Kurtz. What's that one? What's the one? Marlon Brando. That one. He was saying like he would rather watch the other one, the Stanley Kubrick one, which the names are escaping me right now. He'd rather watch that one many other times than that one. And he also said like Casino, where he would rather watch Casino than Godfather, which I agree with. Godfather's cool, but Casino, yeah, Casino is just, I don't know, just how they pace that movie. It's just, yeah, I know it's fucking like 9 hours long. I know Casino's 9,000 hours long. How they pace it over 4 years. But no, Casino, yeah, like, and that just made me think like, oh, The Godfather, that's the best mafia movie. Just like, you know, there's cool shit in there, but are we accepting this sort of like The Godfather is the best sort of thing that we've accepted and let it permeate our mind? Or did we sit down there and did we really, with our own resources, with our own mind, with our own feelings, determine, yes, I watched The Godfather. I've determined for myself that it is actually one of the best mafia movies of all time, or a great movie of all time. However you want to phrase it, right? But often it's like, oh yeah, Godfather, oh yeah, it's a great movie, yeah, you know. But it's like we just add on. Like recently, when I was for Christmas, when I was in Chicago, my mom ordered this. It was like a sweet potato cake, right, from this place online, Caroline's Cakes or some shit. And you know, I was like, ooh, sweet potato cake, interesting, right? It wasn't a pie, it was a cake, right? So we brought it to one family event on New Year's Eve, that's today, on Christmas Eve, right, one of my cousin's places, and everybody really loved it. Everybody really, really enjoyed it, right? We brought half, there was nothing left, right? And brought it to Christmas, right? People also enjoyed it. Right, my mom had it, right? She hadn't had it, right? But she heard all the great reviews. She had it, and she's like, it was all right. And it was funny, because I really appreciate it, because, you know, I was like, oh, it's good. I mean, but it wasn't like anything special to me. I'd much rather have had a sweet potato pie than a sweet potato cake. But was it a bad dessert? No. Was it all right? I would say it was more than all right. So it was good, right? Not great, not spectacular, but good. Right, I would eat again, right? But, you know, there was nothing about it that blew me away. But some people, they were like, yo, where is this? What, can I get one tomorrow? Right? But that's people's own perspective, right? But, yeah, my mom was like, she's like, you know, whatever. It was okay. It's like, oh, okay. But I appreciate that, because, it, you know, you have to determine with your own minds. Of the two witnesses, be the principal one, which is a Lojong slogan, which means if there's person A out there and there's you, and they're saying this shit is blue, like that dress, this dress is this, right? But you're like, nah, this dress is this. You know who you believe? You believe your own perspective, right? You don't take any other's perspective as like the perspective, right? You can take it into consideration, but ultimately you got to have your own intuitive perspective on shit. Right? Determine yourself how you're viewing reality. But with all that being said, you have to do it while realizing your thoughts are hollow. You have hollow thoughts. Hollow thoughts. Yeah, you know, the regular thoughts, you know, I don't know. They have a nougat filling. But these new hollow thoughts, you know, it's half the calories, you know? That's what you want. It's like a baked crisp of thoughts, but they're hollow. There's no substance to them. Show me the substance of your thoughts. Show me the substance of your feelings. You can't. You can't even prove it. You can't even weigh it. That's the point. But we give them such credence. We give them such like, oh, even negative feelings. But we got negative feelings, positive feelings, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, in between everything, right? It's all neutral, but it's also all hollow. There's nothing behind it, right? Nothing. It's air. It's less than air. It's just something our mind does, right? It's like, think about thoughts and feelings as like farts, right? Maybe they're like silent farts, right? And maybe they don't even smell sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're loud, and sometimes they're proud. But the point is, they're nothing, right? They come up and it's like, ooh, go get some ice cream. You know, like, oh, did you do your laundry? Right? And since we're in the world, they're beneficial, right? Oh, I got to get my laundry. Oh, I got to do my laundry. Oh, it's Jane's anniversary. Let me get her favorite cupcakes. Oh, you know, there's lots of things that happen in the external world that, you know, we need to remember for one reason or another. This was some like monk in the jungle, a mungle, a munkle. That's where some monk in the jungle. You know, we're gonna have responsibilities. We're gonna have things to do, and that's where it's like the balance of your spiritual path and also being in the world, and that's one of the biggest tests and lessons that you got to deal with, right? Because just being in the world is a test and a lesson, right? Being a spiritual warrior, waking up and you got to go deal with people, and sometimes ignorant people, sometimes very moody, ignorant, hateful, mad, sad, shameful, disappointed people. And sometimes they're excited and joyful. And let's not get deference to that, like, you know, the other way where it's like, that's better, right? Because think about it. If maybe we're feeling what I was just describing, and you run into a joyful person, while it can inspire us, it can also make us feel shittier, right? That's why it's like, it's sort of funny. It's like you don't want to, like the joyful person who's around someone who's maybe feeling low, right? They shouldn't come down like, well, let me feel low with this person, right? Like, you know, it shouldn't be that. But, you know, it's like the high states and the low states, we got to look at them with the same scrutinizing eye. Because you're going to experience high states. You're going to experience low states. And give no special treatment to either one. They are just states. They are just places where you are feeling things. And I know we feel things so deeply, and we have these thoughts, and these thoughts are like, ooh, this bitch, ooh, that, you bastard, right? And these feelings, ooh, they don't feel great, right? And the thoughts. This is why we have tools for transformation, to deal with the thoughts and to deal with the feelings, right? Not to deal with the feelings, not necessarily, again, not problem solution, but perspective and alchemy instead of problem solution. Perspective on what's actually happening, and alchemy with the energy. Perspective and alchemy. I'm writing that down. Perspective and alchemy. Yo, their new album, yo, first of all, when they were touring with Tools for Transformation, I was like, yo, that bill is sexy. Tools for Transformation. What was it? Perspectives and alchemy. I need something to drink, but I don't have anything to drink, so I'm going to eat an apple. Apples are very, they quench my thirst now. I go for an apple now before I'll drink water now. Like, I realize water really doesn't quench your thirst as much as we think it does. Because I'm starting another fruitarian thing. I've been doing that off and on the past few months. And I'm starting another one tomorrow. But technically I could start today because I haven't ate anything except for fruit. But, you know, let me not be silly. Let me be part of the group and start on tomorrow like everybody else. But anyways. But yeah, if I eat an apple, I just feel so much more quenched than if I just drank a cup of water. So anyways. Oh yeah, that's much better. Perspective and alchemy. So, oh, delicious. So, let me finish chewing. So, we give a certain pedestal putting on high emotions, low emotions, right? We have to understand the impermanence of our emotions and our thoughts and our feelings, right? And stop putting them like, oh, this low feeling, right? You know, we highlight it, right? There's a certain where it's like, I've been reading this this Gnostic psychology, sort of like meditations and lessons, and it talks about self-observance, right? Observing your own thoughts, your patterns, your feelings, right? And how, you know, we forget about ourselves in this. And I was like, oh yeah, like it's like completes the circuit, where if I'm observing that I don't like how I look on this video, which is a real thing, that I just, you know, I feel my face is puffy, like I'm observing this, right? You know, I'm observing that I'm feeling a certain way about how I look right now, right? And, you know, it's like something that's going on in the back of my head, and, you know, it's just, you know, it's bothering me, like, I don't know, a 10%. It's very low, but it's something that it's keeping some part of my attention. You know, I'm aware of it. So, like, that's why I was like, oh, should I put on a hat? I look better with a hat on, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit like that. But that's a babysitter that's like, that's coddling my insecurity, right? And you need to experience the insecurity. Can't coddle it, right? So, you know, I'm aware of me experiencing this feeling, right? Not just being aware of the feeling, being aware of an entity being like observing the feeling, right? It's like a complete loop. The observer and the observed. And like, you know, you kind of can look at it like look at yourself like a movie. That's another helpful way of looking at it, where if you were watching a movie of yourself, right? And the main character is like, you know, they were thinking in their head like, man, I don't like how I look on this video. My face look puffy, or this, that, and the other thing, and my hair, right? Like, just zoom out, like, in what you would think about that moment, right, in the movie, and how it would make you feel, and just kind of like the context of it, you know. And it's like, wow, that character, you know, that's like they you know, they have some insecurities that, you know, that they're going through. Like, I think they look great right there in that scene, you know. It's like, what are they talking about, right? But it's like zooming out, where it's not only you're observing the feeling, but you're observing that there's an entity experiencing and observing the feeling. Observer observed, right? The Christopher Presley / Posh Gibson observing his insecurity about how he looks on the camera, right? It's a complete unit. So, something to think about. And this all relates to our thoughts, blah, blah, blah. But let's get to tools for transformation. Ow! Okay, so. So, the first, mind. So, these are the categories of the tools, not necessarily the tools themselves, but they are the tools. But these are the categories of the tools also. And also, this is a list for me to remember. So, minds, right? Meditation, let's just let me just say that a few times. Meditation, 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 meditation. That's why, folks, if you're listening to a spiritual teacher, this is my criteria. I'm drawing a line in the sand, folks. Drawing a line in the sand. If you're listening to a spiritual teacher who is teaching, encouraging you to do spiritual things, and they don't bring up meditation, they are a fraud, a fucking fraud. They are a fraud. I'm not saying they're actually a fraud, but I'd be very weary of them, right? Because, listen, I have a very quick thing. Like, if I'm talking to someone and they're like, yeah, this, and I'm going through that, and, you know, blah, 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 at some point I'll be like, do you meditate every day? I try. Do you meditate every day, right? Because, as has been said before, is the most transformative practice that one can do for one's mind and reality. And it's the complete, you know how you know it's the shit? Because it's the complete opposite of the world It's stillness and silence. What's the world? Hyperactivity and loudness. Is that what we need to do more of? No. I mean, to go for it if you want to do that, and balance in all things. Do what thou wilt. I'm not necessarily. Listen, I sometimes like being hyperactive and doing a whole bunch of shit in a day and blah blah blah. But I love my solitude and silence and stillness also, and that helps me deal with the fucking moments of hyperactivity and chaos. Right? This is the balance. You can't have it all hyperactivity and chaos, and fucking good luck with all that shit. You need the solitude, silence, and stillness to balance it out, and you just need that fundamentally. That's the purest state. That's the purest state. Running around talking about new recipes for baklava in Lithuania with your grandmother. I know. I don't know where it... Listen, shout out to Lithuanian grandmothers. We appreciate you. We are out there. We will ride for you. Hey, Lithuanian grandmothers, please hit me up on Instagram if you want to be featured on next month's Baklava Bake Off starring Posh Gibson and the Lithuanian Grandmother Army. Woo! Okay. Anyways. Anywho. Yeah, you gotta be sitting with your mind. You gotta make friends with your mind. Y'all niggas have adversarial relationships with your mind. That is the hugest problem that people have, is they don't have a great relationship with their mind because they haven't sat with just their mind. I know, yeah, you can meditate while you're doing dishes, but also you gotta just sit with your mind. It's like when people say that to me, I'm like, okay, all right. Like Chögyam has a good quote about like this hunter. He's talking about this story about he met this hunter at his abbey he used to run, and he was like, oh, I meditate when I'm in the woods shooting animals and things like that. And like Chögyam has a funny line where he's talking about this, like, yo, I don't trust people who just don't meditate. He's like, I just don't trust you. I'm the same way. I don't trust you. I really, not don't trust you. Like, we can hang out, right? But like, I would put it like this. Any partners I have going forward, right, romantically, sexually, right, romantic sexually, right, I'm pairing those together, I don't, you gotta be meditating. You gotta be meditating, people. You gotta be meditating. No, I reject anybody who says, oh, but I meditate when I'm doing... No, you're doing something. Are you sitting just with your mind and breathing? If you're not, you're missing out. Now that's about missing out. It's not about FOMO, right? But that's why you need to just be sitting with your mind. And I got something else I was thinking about recently. I was doing like the Kanye hands, like, yeah, Okay, so, meditation's out there now, right? Ooh, meditation. Ooh, you can become more calm, more relaxed, more blah, 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 peaceful, loving, kind, right? All these superlatives, right? About if you meditate, this is what you'll get from, right? This whole app called Calm, right? There's a problem with that characterization that I'm starting to realize, right? There's a problem with that because the mind is not calm. The mind is, at times, the least calm thing in existence for certain people at certain moments, for all of us at certain moments, for sure. And that's the sort of the dirty secret about meditation, is that you have to learn to be with your specific mental, emotional chaos, right? And sitting with that consistently over time, over weeks, months, years, you not only understand your specific brand of mental, emotional chaos that's going on, right? That comes to the surface based on all sorts of external activators, right? Because nothing causes it, it just activates it within you. You see them for what they are, just like we were talking about thoughts being hollow. You see them as hollow. Okay, that thing happens with year 10. Why are we giving it deference now? Why are we believing in it now? right? And this, we're going to get to body work and why body work is very important, right? To deal with these things. But why are we giving these feelings, why are we putting them on a pedestal? And I'm talking about traumas. I'm talking about sadness and pain. I'm talking about joy and ecstasy and all these sorts of things. And there's nothing wrong with feeling great. And there's nothing wrong with experiencing pain and sadness. But you have to realize when, from an egotistical standpoint, we'll put them on a pedestal. We'll give them a little extra, like, like, oh, a little extra bump. Like, like they're, like, certain things don't need an extra bump. But, it's like, like sometimes when I go to the gym, they have protein shakes, and something I stopped doing because I was like, interesting. Where, I would get them and they would have like a scoop of protein powder in them. But sometimes I would get an extra scoop of protein powder, right? Like, can you put an extra scoop of protein powder in there? Sure, right? And I thought about it, I was like, why do I need an extra scoop? Like, what, did I do anything that requires an extra scoop? Like, no. Like, even if I did, like, I'd be fine without an extra scoop. So I was really thinking about this, about like, just we always want extra scoops of things. Like it was, the shake was fine as it is, but just something was like, ooh, I can get an extra scoop. I want an extra scoop because that would mean extra muscles, whatever, right? We always want to add, extra toppings, right? And there's nothing wrong with extra toppings, but it's like, well, it's never enough with certain shit, right? There's like, sex can sometimes be a good example where it's like sometimes I'll see a woman I find very attractive, right, out somewhere, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, like I should go talk to her, I should get her number, right? But then I do this thing now where it's like, okay, let's just run through how this could play out. Okay, do you think you want to marry that woman? And it's like, probably not. Okay, so you don't want to marry her. It's like, just be honest. Like, do you just want to fuck her? Like, yeah, I would just want to fuck her, or just have some fun, right? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but it's like, then okay, you're fucking, right? You're just gonna fuck her once. Like, no, I'm sure if it was good, I want to fuck her again, right? Okay, okay, all right. So you're fucking her consistently, right? Okay, great, whatever. Then what's the end game, right? Then it's like, maybe at some point she's like, oh, do you want to be in a relationship? You don't want to be in a relationship with her, right? You said you didn't want to marry her. And it's like, but you want to still keep fucking her. Maybe you lead her along. Maybe you're like, no, I'm not into this. And then she's sad and heartbroken and this sort of thing. Or maybe it ends amicably, but then maybe you're like, ooh, yeah, maybe I did want to date her. And then she moves on, right? I just play out the whole thing. And, excuse me, piece of apple. And play out the whole thing. And actually, it could go any sort of way, right? This is just me speculating, but I just don't ride with the passion at the moment that I have and not think it could play out a certain way that I'll have to deal with, amongst all the pleasure that maybe you could have, but it could end in heartbreak, because of the pursuit of pleasure, right? So, I don't know what this had to do with the minds and meditation. But the point is, just looking at how things play out in one's mind is why, things like meditation are very helpful, because you can sort of see where shit is going. You can sort of see where things are developing, and you kind of can have a wider perspective on just shit you got yourself into, right? And shit you got going on. So, yeah. So meditation. There's so many meditations out there. You just gotta, honestly, folks, you gotta just keep experimenting with different types and styles of meditation, guided meditations, binaural beats, until you find something that works for you. All roads lead to the castle. Same castle, right? It's not about this is the way. It's about finding your way, right? Finding your way to transformation, to alchemy, right? I'm offering today different books, practices that have helped me in my alchemy and transformation. But maybe you read this book I mentioned and you're like, this book sucks. I hate this book. This book de-transformed me. Like, how could you recommend this? But then off of that, maybe they're like, oh man, let me look up the opposite of that book and buy that book. And you buy that book and it's like, that's the book for you, right? Hey, if that's how you get there, that's how you get there, right? But these are the books that have helped me, right? These are the book, or these practices, books, techniques, thoughts, ideas, concepts. But again, thoughts and ideas, fuck thoughts and ideas. We're into practices and techniques, people. We're into doing, right? Doing aligned with our being, right? So it's a winged potato. Oh man. For anybody out there who's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan, random, I know. I just watched the Pod People episode. God damn, that is the funniest one to me. It's always been a top one. I was like, oh, I got to check that out. I finally watched it the other day. Oh man, it's just so funny. Just so many points because it's such an absurd movie and they just riff on it just so well. It's goddamn brilliant. Anyways, so this is what's worked for me, right? So, but you always have to go on your journey. Like that's why you got to teach. Think about anybody, teachers. I consider myself a student teacher. Like I'm a TA because I never want to consider myself a master, right? I'm never going to be like, oh, I'm the master. I'm a master, blah, 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 blah. Because that just seems so solidified and so like, oh, well, it's like, I know what's up. Like, I'm like a master now, right? It's just so like, spiritual materialist, right? So, because you always want to be open to learning new shits, right? And master, I mean, I would think a master would be open to learning new shit, but it's like I like student teacher, right? Because it's like if you're in grad school and you're like, okay, you finish your classes, your main study, and maybe you're working on some other shit, like you're working on a dissertation. It's like, then you do student teaching, right? You run some classes, right? You do some TA sections. That's how I feel now. That's how I feel about doing videos, right? That's why it's like I really don't want to take any sort of money right now, Patreon or anything like that, because I feel I'm student teaching, and it doesn't mean I'm rejecting it outright, but I'm just saying right now I just want to, this is me student teaching, right? This is me as I develop and further do my own dissertations and experiments, and then, when I feel called to have a Patreon where it's like, hey, come and blah, 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 and talk about this, and blah, 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 I'll do it, but right now, this is my student teaching. You're in the number 8 section of Occultism 104. I'm your teaching assistant, Posh Gibson. And today we're talking about tools for transformation, folks. So we're glad you're here. Buckle up, settle in, bring some gin, or don't bring gin. But, live your best life. Do what thou wilt. Shout out to Alexandra, because I honestly did not know that full quotes, do what thou wilt. I've only just heard do what thou wilt, but apparently there's like, love is the law. There's like an extra line to it. I was like, oh, okay. I probably should know the whole quote. Probably should read the whole passage, but you know how things are. But, I like the second part, so it just added to the point I was making. So, tools for transformation. Okay, so the mind. So we talk about meditation. And let me just put another plug in, meditation. And meditation. Meditation. Did I say meditation? Did I fucking say meditation? I know, this is excessive. I know, I said meditation. I said meditation so many times. I'm saying meditation again. I can't stress it enough, but whatever. Don't take my word for it. Go experiment for yourself. That's ultimately the thing. Go find out for yourself. Just think of me as a sign along the way saying like, hey Frank, hey Judy, meditation? And it's like you keep on walking. And just the next person I'm like, meditation? Just think of it like that. Just don't give any sort of extra deference because like, oh, I like Posh or whatever. If you're looking for a sign to start a meditation practice in the new year, this is your sign. This is the sign, folks. Start a meditation practice. This is the sign. But keep in mind, don't let niggas out there fool you, because meditation is code word for learning to float in the ocean that is your chaotic mental and emotional mind. Okay? Just like that quote I keep saying about the mystic swims in the waters the schizophrenic drowns in, right? You're not swimming, you're floating, right? Swimming is like doing maybe other practices, right? Astral projection, I would say, is a good example of swimming. You're out there, you know what I'm saying? You're really out there. You're swimming in the ocean, right? More or less, right? In terms of what you got to deal with out there versus, meditation. If you go very deep into it, obviously that could be the case as well. But at least starting out, it's like you just want to be able to float and not sink into the chaotic mental, emotional minds, right? You just got to learn how to float there, right? You got to float there and not grasp on to what comes up, right? Just you see it, say thinking, right? Just label it thinking. Even feelings, even a desire to move, right? Thinking, come back to your breath. Thinking, come back to your breath. Thinking, come back to your breath. And you do that as many times as you want. You don't judge yourself. You don't say, oh, I'm a bad meditator because I had to come back to my breath 3,000 times. It doesn't fucking matter. There's no such thing, bad meditator. There's no such thing as a bad meditator, folks. No such fucking thing. Doesn't exist, never will exist, okay? If you're sitting there and putting effort into meditating, congratulations, you're an A-plus meditator. And it only gets better from there, right? Because you're sitting there, you're putting the effort, right, to develop your own mind, to be friends with your mind. Think of it like that. That's why it's if you gotta, think of your mind as your best friends, right? That you just haven't worked, or a potential best friend that you just haven't put in the time in that relationship, right? Maybe when you were younger, right? You put in lots of time. You're growing up, you have an imagination, you're doing this, doing that. As you get older, you get separated from your minds, right? You got to be an adult. Stop hanging out with mind and using your imagination. Grow up, be an adult, right? All this sort of shit, right? You grow apart. I'm telling you, you need to come back together with your minds, right? It's an old friend. It's an old dear friend. We haven't spent time with it. That's what meditation is. It's spending time with your mind and developing that friendship, right? Realizing what the mind's going through, right? It's like how, why is it bringing up these things? Just imagine the mind is your friend and has these things that it wants to tell you, right? That's got going on, but you're too busy being an adult. You're too busy doing this. You're too busy doing that. How do you think your mind feels about that? Probably doesn't feel great. It's not going to really be your best friend when you need it because you haven't been its best friends, right? So you got to think of it like that. Make friends with your mind. That's what meditation is, right? You understand your mind. Just like I understand my best friend. She understands me because we spent time together. We've talked. We've experienced each other in various states. Very, very high, very, very low, anywhere in between. You start understanding. You start seeing, you start observing, you start being aware of, oh, I see why they're mad about that. That reminds me of this other time this situation happened. Or I understand why that's very exciting to them. Maybe at first I didn't understand, but I understand why this piece of news that they're telling me is very exciting, right? Based on getting to know my friends, right? And the same thing with our minds. The meditation, that's so clinical. Meditation, right? It reminds me of Terrace Martin. Love him. Multi-instrumentalist. Right? He was doing this interview where he was talking about, among other things, he was talking about developing one's craft, right? And, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays keys, but also he plays saxophone. And he was talking about he played in this big band with his saxophone player who's 80 years old, right? He's probably in his 40s, right? Terrace Martin. And at one point during the gig, he asked him, how'd you get so good? What's your secret, right? And the dude said, I spend time with my saxophone, right? And Terrace Martin, he was oh, you got it, right? And he, and this is the key point. Practicing with your instruments sounds so fucking clinical and so boring and so ugh. That's why it's if you have a child who's into instruments, don't call it practice. Call it oh, did you play with your piano today? Did you spend time with your piano? Did you hang out with it? Right? Did you exchange messages, right? Like it's a friend. Think of it like a friend. Ooh, did you, like, imagine if you thought about like hanging out with your friend. Ooh, did you gather data information on your friends? It's like, what? It's like, oh, hanging out. That's what it is. But it's like, we don't call it that. But that's essentially what it is, an exchange of information and data, right? On various things, you know, energy, all those sorts of things. But it's like, we don't call it that, but that's what it is. But that just sounds terrible. It's like, oh, we just hung out. We spent time together. We, you know, we blah, blah, blah. We had fun. We played around, you know, whatever the case may be. That's a truer childlike connection, right? Imaginative play, right? So, you know, he was just talking about like, yeah, spending time with your instrument, not practicing. Right? Like, ooh, we just, me and the saxophone, we hung out last night. We watched a movie, and like there was a saxophone in the movie and my saxophone was like, that's my cousin. You know what I'm saying? It's like, literally like that. Like literally bringing it back to the childlike wonder and imagination with all the things around you, right? With this microphone, a microphone, remember we did that video earlier? We killed it. What's up, microphone? My nigga, microphone, what's up? Okay, what's up? Yeah, okay. But like literally bringing it to that, no matter what you're doing, and first and most, bringing it to that with your minds. Like, this nigga, the ride or die, my mind, mind, we about to do this video. We're gonna talk about New Year, same foolish monk, you know what I'm saying? Like, just having fun with it, just playing around with it, right? Just like it's like, just you have a dark thought, right? Just have a very dark thought, right? Like, why can't we be like, oh, that's hilarious, right? Why do I have to be like, oh, that's a terrible thought? Okay, that's one reaction to that terrible thought, right? Think about, like, I was talking about this last night with somebody about, like, we think about like, oh, I'm in a low place, right? We like conceptually we'll think of it like this, right? Low, where I'm down here. I'm feeling low, right? We're experiencing these low feelings, right? Down here, low, right? Then I'll have the high feelings. Oh, great, wonderful, right? But what if, let's just reverse this for a second. What if low is down here and high is up here? Or even better, what if low is here and high is over here, and they're actually on the same plane? There's two extremes on the plane. And then if you bring them back here in the middle, that's what you want to do. You just want to take the extremes instead of low or high, left or right. And don't get into the whole left hand bad thing, right? Recently, like the whole thing, like, you can't use your left hand to dap. I'm calling that out. Says who? Says what? If you show me evidence of that anywhere, occult evidence, spiritual evidence, cultural evidence, aside from some niggas saying that to not use the left hand, that sounds moralistic, that sounds dumb, that sounds like religious superstition, just in the form of the culture, okay? So left hand. What's wrong with my left hand? It's the opposite of my right hand. That's any worse to give dap with? Says who? Did you determine that? Or did someone tell you that? Yeah, exactly. Someone told you that, and you're like, oh, okay. Left hand dap bad. And I get it. Authority figures, peers. I get it. But you need to challenge these points of view. You need to challenge these perspectives, because they're hollow like everything else. And we hold on to them like they're the bee's knees. Ooh, yeah, that's it. That's the truth that someone told me and I accepted. What's your truth? What did you figure out? Scientist, what'd you figure out? What did you figure out? That's a line that I thought of recently. It's not what you find out, it's what you figure out. I'm telling you things that only I found out in terms of found the information, but I figured out in terms of my insights. Sometimes you figure things out without finding things out. You just have an insight and you're like, I don't know what the fuck that came from, but yeah. But sometimes it's like on the road to finding out information, gathering knowledge and reading through knowledge and reflecting upon knowledge. you figure something out. And it may be indirect, maybe something related to what you were learning or studying, or maybe unrelated, but the information that you came across, and it's obviously a continual journey where it's like you have to come across that information, and someone led you there, and right, it's a whole circle, right? But, however, you have to determine what this information means to you and how you want to look at it. All right, two people could read the same sort of passage from a book and be like, fuck that shit, or be like, oh my God, I need to show everybody ever this line, right? That's why it's like, yo, I'm going to share the books that have helped me. But maybe you're like, I read that book, fuck that book. Fine, that's fine too. At least you experimented with it. At least, I would say maybe you might be rejecting, your ego might be rejecting the message. But, hey, that's not my concern. That is of your concern. I would say, okay, maybe read it again. If you have that strong of a reaction, read it again. See what happens. And I would I wouldn't even care. But I would like to see, what specific thing you don't like, or has no value in this book, or you don't like. I'd be like, break it down for me. Show me. You can't just be like, no. Oh, no, show me the line where you're like, that nigga's wrong. I'd be very curious, especially a book like that. So, got to work with your mind, folks. Got to work with your mind. So, without further ado, we're going to get into some books. So I can just get these out of the way first and foremost. Then we'll kind of get into some subconscious practices. And then we'll get into body work and ritual. And then I will go eat lunch. Possibly. All right. So, first books. I mentioned them before. I'm mentioning them again. We got Great Path of Awakening, Jamgon Kongtrul, right? Lojong slogans. See that bad boy up there? Also, we have this one. Train the Mind, Cultivating Love and Kindness, Chögyam Trunpga. All right? Also works with the Lojong slogans. Right? Those Lojong slogans, it's just funny now because I don't actively do them as much as when I first got into them, maybe, let's say 10 years ago, right? Where I kind of did them more consistently, like every day I would pick one, that sort of thing. But now they just come up, and ones that I don't even remember that I remember, just situations will come up, and I'm like, oh, that slogan. And it's just really funny now because there's certain slogans, part of Lojong, that just I always loved, and as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, it was just burned in my mind, sort of thing. Like, always maintain a joyful mind, be grateful for everyone, be a child of illusion. There's certain ones where it's like, yo, as soon as I read them, it was like, zzz, it was just in there, right? And always will come up and kind of in certain situations be like, well, always maintain a joyful minds, right? Or don't ponder others, right? I was about to say that one before. Because they're just very helpful, just practical situation helpful, right? Like I have this thing about theoretical spiritual knowledge, right? Yeah, great. It's great to pontificate about this and that, and what does this all mean, right? But you got to find out what it means, right? You got to go on the journey, right? Thinking and being all up in your head and all that sort of shit, while useful, isn't actually going on the journey, isn't actually experimenting. It just, sometimes I call it theoretical masturbation. It's like you got to mix the theory with practice. Like I have a thing over there that says 99% practice, 1% theory. Because believe it or not, you actually need way less theory than you think. You really just need a great, solid, consistent practice in whatever you're doing. You actually need very little guidance, right? Because you can take a small amount of information and really juice it and get so much out of it, rather than taking a whole bunch of theory and then it's like to put all that theory in practice, it would be a lot at once, or it's just unreasonable at once, and kind of water down your effort. It's better to do just have a little bit of theory and just just get all you can out of that orange, right? Then it's like, ooh, we squeeze all we can out of this orange. And it's like, okay, let's add a little bit more theory, right? But let's just really work on the practice with this little sliver of theory rather than focus, because it just feels intellectually stimulating, almost sexually stimulating, honestly, just gathering a lot of information and knowledge, right? Like I realized one time, like Pinterest is one of my favorite places on the internet. Pinterest and Reddit, and they're both red sort of things, which I find very funny. Root chakra, I get it. Ha ha, I see what they did there. But one rabbit hole that, man, I would go down rabbit holes for this. I was like, yo, I'm addicted, right? Was they would have all these whole things with all these random facts, right? Some of them about a specific theme, or some of them just like each one was a random one. And there'd be so many, and I could just for hours like go on just like learning about these random facts. I was like, it was like if I felt I was just like, oh, hold on, you've ate enough cookies, or oh, hold on, you did enough whatever, right? You need to just take a break there, buddy. But like, yeah, it's like, yo, I am addicted to seeking knowledge, and gathering information. But it's like, what type of knowledge and what am I doing with it, right? Because I could always gather knowledge, but it's like I want to gather knowledge that I can apply, right? Like there's some, information or some knowledge, right? It's like I love biographies and autobiographies, so not that necessarily there's anything in there that's like, ooh, I'm applying what I learned about. What's that dude? Buckminster Fuller. What's that dude? Buckminster Fuller's autobiography, Although I did hear something recently that was talking about him and vision, about like how when he was a child, he had poor vision, right? And then he got these glasses and he was just like, oh my God, I can see, right? And he just had this thing about even if he has something where he doesn't understand it. It was talking about like his personal driving mythos. Like if he has something, so after that, if he had something that he wouldn't understand because he was an inventor, he was like, yo, at some point it'll become clear, even if I don't understand it right now. It'll become clear. It'll go from fuzzy to clear, right? And it was a driving mythos for him. So, yeah, the mind. So anyways, let's get back to practices. So anyways, so books. Lojong. I was on the Lojong books. So a lot of those slogans just have been very helpful to me. You just read through them and you read the commentary, and then when situations come up, you're like, oh, that's that. And trust me, situations will come up where these are applicable all the time. All the time. Like once you understand them, you're like, oh, that's what they mean. Like, ooh, I do ponder others a lot. You'll get it. And it's like a good guiding reminders to just when you get into hollow thoughts, where you're just like out there and you think you're doing shit. You think you're hot shit out there having these hollow thoughts and feelings, but no, it's not hot shit. It's not hot shit at all. Come back to your breath. Come back to the breath of the present moment. So, Lojong books. And again, they are Training the Mind and Cultivating Love and Kindness by Chögyam Trunpga and The Great Path of Awakening by Jamgon Kongtrul. Next, we have Smile at Fear. Also Chögyam book. Excellent book. Great book. But hey, you figure it out. You go on the journey. I'm just here saying what's worked for me, okay? Another one. When Things Fall Apart, Pema Chödron. Wonderful book. Pema was Chögyam's student. Excellent book. But hey, who am I? You go on the journey. You figure it out. You figure it out. I'm going to have a party where I give away this book and When Things Fall Apart. So I'm about to order some more. So I just want to give people this book. I really just want to give people this book. This is my book where it's like, yo, you don't have to be a piece of shit. You don't have to feel like a piece of shit. You don't have to be a piece of shit. Just read this, okay? That's how I feel about this book. Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. Okay, so those were all mind ones. We had some body ones, subconscious mind. This one I'll put in the mind category. Holographic Universe. Great book. Really helps you kind of perceive this whole thing in a different perspective. And that's what we're going for, folks. So you got to have things you can do to work with your mind. And I put mind in quotes, both because it's like, what is mind? Mind is all, so you might as well put it in quotes, right? You got to have practices. And all those books have practical practices. Practical practices. Practices that are actually practical. Or techniques you could play with, right? As we were saying before, right? Practices. Stuff you can play around with, right? You're playing around with meditation. You're playing around with being friends with your mind. You're playing around with, being open, right? You're playing around with these things. You're playing around. So that's stuff on the more conscious level, right? So meditation, kind of reading books, right? To really work consciously with ourselves. But we can also work subconsciously with ourselves, right? So we're on to part 2, subconscious, right? So, what is a subconscious mind, right? So subconscious mind is the part of you that actually is responsible for your reality. So what is buried in your subconscious, what is growing in your subconscious, what's lurking in your subconscious, will be related to what you experience in your conscious waking reality. And honestly, to go back to what I was saying earlier, it's probably more your perspective and perception on it than it is necessarily anything's necessarily changed. But obviously that's part of it too. What the people you experience and all that sort of stuff, and how you feel about the people you experience and what you go through and all that sort of fun stuff. That can obviously physically, visually, quote unquote, tangibly change. But ultimately it's your perspective on things, because, you could be in the same situation as you were last week, but your perspective on that situation can drastically change one way or another. And you could be like, oh man, this shit sucks, right? Or you could be like, oh man, this is actually a great situation that I didn't really take in, like initially, and go both ways. So working with your subconscious mind is a way to understand why your reality, why your mind is a certain way, why you dislike this, why you're triggered by that, why this comes up when this happens, why you move to the left and do the hustle when someone mentions llamas, just all this sort of shit. It's springing out of your subconscious mind, right? And the subconscious mind is, it's fertile. It just takes instructions. It's just like, oh, this is what you want to do? All right. It's not judging here. It's like, oh, okay. That's why, being aware of what your, subliminal messaging and, what you accept in is very important. That's why, advertising and shit like that is very clever about sending messages straight to your subconscious mind that are just too quick or too symbolic, you should say, for your, conscious mind. Your conscious mind is like, very scrutinizing, which is part of the ego's job. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. What are they saying? No, we're not accepting that into our consciousness, right? It's like, that's the best and the worst thing about the ego mind, that it's like, it wants to scrutinize on our behalf, right? That's a survival thing where it's like, wait a minute, who the fuck are you? Nope, sorry. No, we don't want any. No, please, no, close the door, right? It's part of, just being in a survival species mode where, people can come in and chop your head off and sort of shit, whereas you develop a scrutiny towards others. But also it's like personal survival about like ego mind's like, I don't know about those berries. I don't know about that. Scrutinizing mind. So, but the worst thing about it is that, you know, it becomes scrutinizing mind for everything, for your intuition, for every little thing. It's like, well, wait a minute, bitch. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's look at this, right? When it doesn't need to be, right? There's probably very few situations where you need scrutinizing mind. But you do need it occasionally, right? To keep certain shit in check and not completely be swept away with the whims of feeling, right? Not intuition, but feeling, right? Thought is concrete. Feeling is like kind of like, ooh, superfluous. And neither is better than the other. They are neutral in a sense, and they have a lot of correspondence to each other, right? And they're a pair, and it's just that in this world, thinking is given a lot of extra deference. So, ooh, he's a deep thinker, right? But it's like, oh, you feeler, you're too sensitive, right? And it's kind of that's sort of the imbalance. It's like, ooh, fuck feeling, right? And it's like, ooh, thinking. Oh, you're thinking about things? Oh, yeah, right? But it's like we just need to bring feeling back to the neutral and bring thinking down to the neutral because they're both neutral, right? Again, stop giving deference to them like they're the worst feeling in the world is any better than is the same as the best feeling in the world. Just what we feel is like, oh, that's a more authentic feeling. It's like that, that's a bad feeling, right? It's just feeling, thinking, feeling, right? Something that occurred, right? Ooh, it felt like this, right? Because think about it. If you're hot, like you think like, ooh, taking a cold shower, like, cold shower, I want a hot shower, right? But have you ever been so hot where it's a cold shower is like that? Thank goodness, right? The last thing you wanted was hot water. So it's like you can't say outright cold shower is a bad thing, right? Just like you can't say outright warm shower is a good thing. Although generally it's accepted that it's like, ooh, warm shower, oh, that's wonderful, right? Who doesn't love a warm shower? I'm sure there's people out there who love cold showers versus warm showers, but I don't know who they are. But anyways, I digress. So you need things that work on your subconscious mind, okay? Just like you need things to work on your conscious mind, right? So one of these tools that I personally prefer is tarot cards. We love tarot cards, right? Tarot cards are powerful, especially if you get a deck like the Hermetic Tarot, which is the deck I use, but, you know, get whatever you feel called to get. Because tarot works well with your subconscious mind, because tarot is all about symbolism. The subconscious mind is programmed in 3 ways, or speaks to you in 3 ways, right? Program, speaks to, talks to you, however you want to put it, right? This is what we're doing. We're talking with, and we're just like making friends with our conscious mind, right? Our mind with meditation. Subconscious mind, hey, I want to party too. I want to hang out. I want to tell you some shit, right? But subconscious mind talks in symbols. Doesn't talk in English. Doesn't talk in Bulgarian. Doesn't talk in French. Talks in symbols. Speaks to you in symbols. It's aligned with symbols. It works with symbols. So, a great language to talk with, to befriend, to communicate with your subconscious mind is tarot, because tarot is based on symbols. And I was recently reading a book, Garden of Pomegranates, that kind of went into this in another way that I hadn't heard before, about, you know, condensing all the world's mystical knowledge down to 78 cards, right? And having it hide in plain sight. You know, it's the idea of what I was saying in another video about the shamans, where it's like, geez, oh man, we can't lose this knowledge, right? What we're going to do? Oh, let's hide it in some stories. Let's hide it in mythology. I was reading some shit recently. I was talking about, where was it? I was talking about mystery schools somewhere and how they were aligned with like dramas. And so, I was reading this Gnostic shit and we were talking about the three brains, right? Where it's like your intellectual brain or brains, your super emotional brains, and then your instinctual kind of, reflexive brains, right? And I was talking about how in an imbalance of not receiving input for all three brains and just focusing on one, our instinctual kind of lower self-savage one is problematic because then it's not balanced. But they were talking about how these dramas and plays would hit all the levels. They would have music, they would have dance, they would have this, they would have that, you know what I'm saying? And they would hit all the different brains. And so the audience would be balanced and would receive kind of nourishment for all the different layers in their beinghood, right? Through these different elements that was in this drama or play or musical. I don't think it was a musical, but play, that they were consuming. So, and that was working on their subconscious mind, right? It was speaking to their subconscious through different symbols, whether it was the symbols of the music, literally symbols in the music, whether it was, lights, the costumes, the colors, right? These were symbols that were going into their minds, like way past the layer of their conscious mind for fucking sure, right? The conscious mind was like, oh yeah, oh wow, they saved the day, and oh, everyone's great, and blah, blah, blah. And like, there's a layer to that too, where it's like the entertainment of it, right? An entertaining story that like, kind of like, ooh, there's some intrigue, there's some this, and like, oh, there's scary moments, there's sad moments, there's this, hero's journey, all that sort of stuff. But there's layers on it that are, if it's done either intentionally or unintentionally, that just go symbolically way deeper into us, way, way, way deeper into us than just a standard, story that's, is kind of like, oh, whatever, this happened and then this, and, it's not a whole thing, right? It's less of a three-brain nourishing meal. So tarot is a wonderful thing. I got these animal cards. You know what I'm saying? There's lots of cards. You get oracle cards. You can get, listen, at this point, there's probably 9 billion different types of tarot cards you can get. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was talking to someone, shout out to you, Alexandra. We're talking about, well, these are oracle cards, but like for DC, like comic book, which I was like, oh man, it's like, there's a lot out there. There's lots of cards you can get but tarot specifically is great because of the symbology that is incorporated in tarot cards. Specifically something like Hermetic Tarot, because it's based on like Golden Dawn shit. So them niggas had all the symbolism, right? So it's just like, their cards are even extra jam-packed with symbolism, where it's like, whoa, okay, you all threw a lot of symbols in there, but I love it. So it's a lot more avenues that your subconscious mind could kind of speak to you about something, right? If you ask a specific question, then it's like, can give you even more symbolic information about that question. But yeah, there's lots of oracle cards, different types of tarot decks. Just trust yourself. Just because I said Hermetic Tarot, maybe you look into it, maybe you're like, okay, like that's interesting, that's cool, but maybe you're on some website that has other tarot cards and you're like, ooh, this one. Go with that one. See what it's like. Do some experiments, right? But me personally, Hermetic Tarot has been great for me, and I've enjoyed using it, although I do want to get other decks and other sort of oracle card decks and things like that. But I've gone very far with these animal cards. What are these animal cards called? I don't know what they're called, but it's like Animal Oracle. It's like, Celtic Animal Oracle, I believe, because it's like a Celtic tradition animal thing, which is pretty cool. What else? Okay, so pendulum. This is another wonderful tool. You get a pendulum, right? Very simple tool to talk with your subconscious mind. You could ask questions, and then use the pendulum to understand the answers. Obviously, it doesn't have the symbolic impact of working with tarot cards, but, it's a more direct, you could say, more direct way of talking with one's subconscious mind. So, got that going for you. Also, I want to mention this book, Hidden Power. There's other books about the subconscious mind and stuff like that, but this is one good one I've come across recently that I like. Check it out. But just type in subconscious mind, books about subconscious mind, and just see what's out there and just get something. And just because you get one book doesn't mean it's going to be the book. You keep finding things out and cross-referencing and okay, I read that book. Let me read another book about the subconscious mind. Let me watch someone else's video about the subconscious mind. And you cross-reference information, and you kind of sift it out. And the cream rises to the top. And that's the same thing with truth, same thing with occult science and spirituality. You got to be the researcher. You got to be the scholar. You got to be the scientist. You got to find out information. You got to figure it out, right? It's not just finding out, right? It's not just doing the experiments, thinking about scientists, right? We're talking about occult science. We're thinking about just a regular old scientist doing experiments on bean sprouts, right? Okay, they do the experiments. I think the bean sprout's going to grow 4 extra inches because of this variable, right? Do the experiments, right? Then what happens at the end? There's a conclusion. This is what they figured out based on the results of the experiment. It's not necessarily about the results of the experiment is what they found out. What they figure out is the insight from the experiment, the additional information they gathered. And it could be different than what they thought it was going to be, right? They thought maybe if this happens, then this is the insight I'll gather. But maybe when it's all said and done and they look at the data and then they kind of think about it and kind of think about the other factors, they're like, oh, actually, the information is telling me this. And I thought it was going to be like that. And that's where it's you got to be open to anything that comes to you in the spiritual path, because it's all illusions. So if some person you hate and detest in your life tells you about a book that's just something about you is as much as I hate this person, some reason I have to look into this book, right? Or just some weird sort of thing where something comes to you and just a package you're not ready for. That's always just a funny moment where it's are you going to just reject the package even though there could be a gift inside just because it's you don't like how it's wrapped, right? And that's the issue sometimes. We reject packages because we just don't like how they're wrapped. We just don't like the wrapping paper. But if we just put aside our thought about the wrapping paper and just look what's inside, it's actually a gift. And part of us getting this gift was getting over how we thought it was wrapped incorrectly or wrongly or ugly or blah, 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 blah. So, gotta work with those illusions of the minds and delusions. That's why chaos is the good things, folks. Peace is cool too, right? But peace is chaos and chaos is peace. And it sounds like I'm being funny. And it sounds like I'm being ha, ha, ha. Oh, I get it. He's being silly. No, I'm literally saying that. That is a literal statement. Here's why. Because if you're in a state of peace, are you going to be in that state of peace forever? There's never going to be chaos again. Just like if you're in a state of chaos, you're never going to have a state of peace again, ever. They're both fleeting states, right? They're both fleeting, impermanent states, right? Again, pedestals. Put the chaos on the pedestal. We put the peace on a pedestal. They're just fleeting states, right? Everything in between, boredom, is the same as chaos and peace, right? Fleeting states. If you're permanently bored your whole life, if your life is permanently chaotic, if your life is permanently peaceful, I got questions. I got big questions about you. Who'd you pay off? Who are you giving money to? Who's taking kickbacks? Huh? Who is taking kickbacks so your life is peaceful all the time? Because that's unnatural. Because things go up and down, back and forth. It's a pendulum. That's why it's you don't grasp at the pendulum, nor do you push it away. You recognize that it's a pendulum, and it swings back and forth. And obviously we set things in motion, and things are set in motion upon us But ultimately, it's just a pendulum, and it's going to swing back and forth, and we don't get caught up in the swinging and the back and forth. We just recognize that it's happening and that it happens. And this is leaving the wheel of time. This is leaving the wheel of dharma and death and rebirth, because it's like we're not caught up in the pendulum anymore. We're not caught up in the back and forth and the swing of the pendulum anymore. Oh, look at that. Oh, the pendulum swung back. Oh, the pendulum swung away. Oh, the pendulum swung back. That's what most people are caught up in. Real talk is the pendulum swinging back, where it's like, oh, it swung back towards me, good thing. Oh, it swung away from me, bad thing. Oh, it swung towards me, good thing. Oh, it swung away from me, bad thing. Well, first of all, flip that around, and when it swings away, be like, oh, that's great. And when it swings towards you, oh, that's terrible. Just try that on for size. And then also, just lose your investment in the swinging back and forth, whether it's swinging back and forth on the news, swinging back and forth in your own emotions and thoughts. Just like you're observing. You're observing a pendulum in your own life, the swings of it, the peace and the chaos, right? You're just observing it. You're aware of this pendulum happening, and you're observing it. And you're not giving it special treatments like, ooh, this is the most peaceful state ever. Oh, I could just live here forever, right? Do you want to live there forever? Maybe. I mean, it's more about your perspective on the pendulum and perspective on the swings than it is trying to stop the swings. The swings are part of the ride. It's part of the roller coaster. It's what just happens. We're here. It goes back and forth, people, and you just get a better, wider perspective on the back and forth. That's the big trick. That's the big secret. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. You could also become actually more peaceful too, but I would say your perspective becomes more peaceful and relaxed. That actually it's like, you're more peaceful. I'm peaceful and relaxed. Look at me. Look how relaxed I am. Bullshit. That's not it. It's your perspective has changed. It's your viewpoint on what is happening has changed. Not anything necessarily has actually changed. It's just your view on it has changed. So, to get to things to help you with that, working with the subconscious mind is a powerful tool because, one, it can help you understand what is in your subconscious mind, what you got rooting around in there. Dogs and cats and lions and Ewoks. You know, you can find out what's going on down there. And you can gather information, right? You're reconnecting with an old friend. Oh, subconscious. Oh, hey, tell me a story, subconscious, about shadow self. Ooh, yeah, let's talk with shadow self today. Okay, sit down, Posh. Okay, shadow self wants to tell you, right? Those are the most enlightening ones I've done recently, where I talked to my shadow side, you know what I'm saying? And I got some very interesting answers. Like, this was a very interesting answer to me, right? We think of shadow self as like, bad, the shadow self. Bad, right? That's a moralistic viewpoint on. That's a religious viewpoint on the shadow self. But wait a minute, why isn't it bad? It's the shadow self. Well, you sillies, okay? It's not bad because it's just part of the cycle. Is winter bad? Is winter inherently bad? Is it any worse than summer? There's some people who can't stand summer. We always think there's people who love winter, right? So, winter is not bad, nor is it good, and neither is summer. It's just these are the opposite states of our seasons, right? And look at it like that with with our subconscious mind. Damn, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? States and tools, subconscious mind. Because I was talking about the opposites of our minds and you just get out there with those rants, and you're really out there and just I'm way past thoughts at that point, and then I can't get it connected back to the point, but it's like I know I'm on some high level ish when it's like I can't keep up with my train of thoughts, right? It's like I've outrun the train of thought. You know what I'm saying? I'm on like a jet, like a rocket ship, a spaceship, where it's like the train of thought that only can go like 100 miles an hour. This rocket ship is going 4,000. It's like, what train at that point? At that point, but we're trying to talk about certain things. It gets annoying, but it's like I take it for what I will, because I know that's like I'm aligned with the pure stream of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Where I need to be. You know, and it's probably more important than whatever point I was going to make. But the subconscious work, just working with your mind and the subconscious. And usually it comes back to me once I just get on back to the thing I was talking about. You know, the subconscious mind just needs to be worked with, right? And it's like your interview. Oh, I was talking about the shadow self tarot reading, right? So we think of shadow as bad, right? This is a bad thing, right? I want to have a whole rant about that, right? Think shadow is bad thing, right? Just like, you know, winter bad, summer good, winter bad, summer good, right? We think of like, oh, higher self, oh, good. Shadow self, oh, bad, right? We put these, and this is just the religious, moralistic, hogwash, pig shampoo nonsense, that where is it actually valid? Where is that actually solid? Other than in a church, other than from the religiosity that exists out in the mainstream that is like, you know, conditioned into people on varying levels, right? Where is that actually true? Show me. I'm open to it. I'll listen. Although it seems like I'm pretty firm on my opinion. You know what I'm saying? If you show me legitimate evidence, I'll consider it. But I know what it is. I know what time it is with that sort of shit. So, you know, when I was talking to my shadow self, it was like, yo, like one of the questions that I was asking was like, yo, what do you want to eat, nigga? Like, what's your food? Like, what do you eat? And it was like, I eat, like the carol I got was like, it was like, I eat failures and all this sort of shit. And I was just like, oh, like I got something in that moment. And what I got is that for me, if I'm staying in a comfort zone, right, not expanding, not smiling at fear as it is put by Chögyam and myself, by doing new things, by going outside my comfort zone, by experimenting, right? And the little and small ways in life, naturally those experiments, some fail, you know, don't go as planned and things like that. And I feel maybe disappointed. I feel blah, blah, blah. I feel this, I feel that about, oh, the experiments, I want to do it like this and this happened, blah, blah, blah. This is where you got to abandon hope and just like, well, this is the experiments. These are the results. Oh, you wanted those results? That's great. But these are the actual results. So how are you going to perceive these results? But the message I got is that if I'm not doing experiments and if I'm not going outside my comfort zone, then my shadow has nothing to eat. And what is it going to do if it's hungry, right? If you have a hungry dog, you don't feed it. Probably it's going to act up. It's probably going to create lots of problems. It's going to eat tennis shoes when you're not home and shit, right? And I think that's what happens to people's shadow, is that they don't have nourishment. And there's nothing wrong with your shadow eating. It needs to eat. You know what I'm saying? Just like a vulture. It's like, are we like, oh, vulture, you're eating roadkill? Oh, that's gross, vulture. Maybe some people have a moralistic view on the vulture. Possibly, yeah, definitely. Where it's like, oh, why can't you be one of these clean birds out here, like a robin? Robin eats worms. Like, you know, it doesn't eat decaying flesh. Vulture, oh my goodness, vulture. Right? But think about it as the shadow, right? The shadow just is cleaning up, right? The energy of your failure, the energy of your disappointment. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll eat this. Sure. You're done with this? You know, I think that's the cycle working on itself. But then it's like, if you don't have anything for your shadow to feed on, then it creates a problem, right? So that's why tarot is very important, because you can get these sorts of answers. You can get these sort of insights through the symbolism, through the message, right? So, but find practices for you. I mean, there's lots of different practices. Tarot, pendulum, I mean, obviously meditation, you know, but, you know, I kind of separate the two because, meditation works with the subconscious ultimately, but that's not the end all be all, right? If I'm doing tarot, it's like I want to talk to my subconscious mind directly. That's why I'm doing this, right? That, but, obviously if you do meditation, it's working on that as well. So, man, I'm going to talking to her. I always feel in my throat. Well, it's like, I don't know. Not that it hurts, but it's like I'm giving my all with my voice. Like I feel it. Like if this was in person, I'd be like yelling. I'd be like yelling like, you need to meditate. Like I don't know why I would have that accent, but I'd be yelling. So, do something to work on your subconscious mind, right? Next. Body work. What do I mean by body work? Something where you're working on your body, right? Qigong. Meditation is passive body work in a funny way, but when I mean body work, I mean more active things. Acupressure, Qigong. Actually, let me show my books. Okay. So, Mantak Chia. Really great guy. Like I know him. Lots of different Qigong books. 6 Healing Sounds, that's a good one, even though there's movements, but that's like, working on using sound for your organs, right? He's got lots of books. Check him out. You know what I'm saying? But there's lots of Qigong out there. Just go onto YouTube and type in Qigong. Go onto YouTube, type yoga, or you can buy books. But there's lots of information out there related to Qigong and videos that you can just follow along and do, and your body will thank you, right? Because think of the symbiotic relationship with your body and mind. Like what I was saying before about sitting with the chaotic part of your mind, it's not helped by a stressed out, tight body, right? That's going to equal a stressed out, tight mind, right? So doing things like Qigong and yoga helps at least kind of like a deep breath. And it's like a little bit easier, quote unquote, to physically sit there, right? If you're sitting down, like, in Indian style, cross-legged, just physically, it kind of, helps you feel a little bit better. But also kind of just on a psychological, emotional level, you can just kind of like, you can have a little bit more space with your mind, after you've done some sort of mind-body exercise like Qigong and yoga. So yeah, Mantak Chia. And for your yoga freaks out there, hey, you yoga freaks, you fucking yoga freaks out here with your yoga and your freakage. Hey, you yoga freaks. My new band. Sana Pranayama Mudra Bandha from Swami Satyananda Saraswati from Bihar School of Yoga. And also, they have a systematic course in ancient tantric techniques of yoga and Kriya. So, juicy books. And actually, surprisingly, are not that expensive. Like, combined, I got both those books for like $30. Like, very, very inexpensive. And lastly, in terms of working, although technically, I'll save this for the ritual one. But I have 2 other books. But yeah, because your body holds on to the energy of your traumas, your sadness, your fears, your malcontent, your depression, your sadness, your toxic thoughts. Like it just, and just like you can be constipated with this energy. Think about being constipated with your emotional, psychological energy, right? That's what goes on. And this is why shit like meditation is like you taking a healthy psychological, emotional shit, right? And working your subconscious. It's like, oh, this is where I'm constipated psychologically, emotionally. You can ask questions, you can find out. And then on the next level, it's that energy in your body, right? Not just dealing with it in the mind, not just dealing with it in the kind of psycho-emotional level, also dealing on the physical level, right? And just physically working with the body, just in a way that can help you with working with your mind. But also it's like, if you're tight and all constricted in your mind and body, you gotta still be able to sit with your mind too and see what that's like, and see, how you might fidget around, or how you might be all whatever constricted, based on how you feel in your body. But generally it's helpful if you've done some qigong and then meditate. It's like, okay, it's like, just a nice deep breath. It's like, So that's body work. That's body work. Do shit with your body. Get massages too. I've been learning about shiatsu massage. Shout out to Alma. I've been learning about shiatsu massage, and I'm about to do a sexy pivot where I'm going to combine my social work with massage therapy, which I've thought about before, but the further I go, the further it's like kind of to this point. Oh, this is a good actually archetype for this sort of thing, where it's like, if I was working with someone, I would work with them, or I would want to assist themselves working with themselves on these levels, right? Their mind, their subconscious, their body, and in ritual, which we're about to get into. In terms of body, it's like when I've finally learned about what shiatsu was, it was just one of those things where I was like, shiatsu massage, but I didn't know what the fuck it was. I'm like, oh shit, that's what shiatsu is? Like, oh, that's yes, this is what I need to get into in terms of merging my social working, occult practitioner-ness, right, with like physical body work on someone. Energetic body work, I would say, is a better way of describing it. And kind of bringing it all together, and also with some occult practice in there, because there is certain shit with one's body that, especially if you're gonna have someone assist you externally with it, is very beneficial and helpful. Not as a long-term thing where it's like, oh yeah, this person always gives me a shiatsu massage, but ideally, where it's like they can tell you how to do it on yourself, and like how to tap into this energy in this part of your body, right? Without them being to be there. Just like the idea of a social worker, it's like you want to work your way out of a job. I don't want someone to come to me for a spiritual counseling forever. They should. I don't want to put a number or a time where it's like, at this point, this person should no longer need to see me. Like I've given them everything, and if they can't, they're not trying. They're not truly trying if they can't with the tools I gave them, right? And what we discussed. And that's a weird way of putting it, but like, I mean that sincerely, where it's like, this is it. Like this, it's not that complicated. It's not that grandiose. It's like, do these practices and keep going. Right. But yeah, it's like, it's like you want to be able to share this so people can figure out themselves. And now certain things like massage, where it's like you can't massage yourself like someone can massage your physical body, right? There's a lot of tricks, you know what I'm saying? Like different things, you can get hooks and things like that. But, from what I learned about shiatsu, it's like, if you get a shiatsu massage from someone else, that's like, but I don't want to say that you couldn't get that for yourself, but it's like you had to learn how to tap into that energy for yourself, whether it's directly how the shiatsu practitioner does it on you, or it's slightly different. It's your own way to do it on yourself that's different than how that person will do it on you. That all depends on you and what you figure it out. But yeah, just I really want to explore it, because I feel that's not a missing link. I mean, we could talk about things, we could go on, that's why it's like, okay, working with the mind and the subconscious, that's kind of like, that's like a certain level. And then working with the body, that's a certain level. And doing ritual, that's a certain level, right? And it's like you want to do all these things together. So just like the three brains, it's like you're hitting all the different levels from the play, right? You're not just hitting one brain, through this. It's like, we're hitting all the things. We're hitting the physical body, we're hitting the mental plane, we're hitting the emotional plane, we're hitting the ritual plane, we're hitting the southwest plane. Southwest, America's favorite meltdown, Meltdown Airlines. We are Meltdown Airlines. Meltdown Airlines. Melting down for you. Hey, did you want to go somewhere? Well, fuck you. You're not going anywhere. We're here at Meltdown Airlines. We just love when you suffer. Oh, you can't get on that plane? Ooh, we enjoyed that. We've renamed ourselves. We're Freudian Shot Airlines. We just get off on you just having a terrible time. Our CEO is actually jerking off in the back office, seeing all these cancellations. He loves it. He told us so. He sends us employees a very graphic video of him masturbating to cancellations of flights. I know, it's kind of weird, but hey, it's his airline, and there's not much we can do. Freudian Shot Airlines, we enjoy your suffering. Freudian Shot Airlines. Anyways, so I feel incorporating something like shiatsu specifically, but touch in general. But now it's like, shiatsu with some sprinkle in some social work and definitely some occult practices in there. Man, people aren't going to be ready. People are going to be falling out like a Beatles concert and a Michael Jackson concert, but falling out from tapping into their own power with my help. But, I claim, it's like, did I create shiatsu? Did I create occult practice? No. I'm just saying, hey, everybody, here's some helpful shit. That's all I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, and I'm packaging together in my own way, but it's like, I didn't create these things, and maybe I put together, it's like, what you figure out. It's not what you find out. I found out about occult practice. I found out about shiatsu. I found out about social work. But what I figured out is I want to bring them together. That's my figuring out. So I'm going to bring them together in these ways. That's my figuring out. It's like, you got to make your own signature dish, even if there's been lots of mac and cheeses that have been created in the world. But what's your signature mac and cheese? First of all, don't call it mac and cheese. That's one thing. That's just me. But maybe you call it, the slack and cheese, or the whack and cheese, or the pack and cheese, because you're a Packers fan. And it's got some local Wisconsin cheese. I'm sure that's a thing. A pack and cheese, like people who go to Packers games, like it's like a certain delicacy. It's like, Marlene, she brought the pack and cheese, and she's got one of the best pack and cheeses, oh my God, that pack and cheese from Marlene, during the blizzard, she wasn't able to get to local Spud McKenzie's farm for the fresh cheese. I believe it was Asiago, for a pack and cheese. But she came through the stadium, and it was darn good, yeah. Darn good, yeah. I don't know if that was a Wisconsin accent or a Canadian accent or a merging of both. It's funny because it's like, I feel like Wisconsin accent is like if a Canadian accent and a Southern accent had a baby in a certain way, and then it's like a Wisconsin accent, like the North, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, right? These are just thoughts, people. Don't give deference to these thoughts. These could be very insightful, or these could be nonsense. They're both. That's why the silliest thing someone can say can sometimes be very insightful in the same breath. Like, that is so silly. Like, me and Ann thought of a silly idea for something, and after we were done, like, going the rabbit hole of the silly idea, we were like, oh shit, that is actually fucking, oh fuck, like, yeah, that would be a fucking thing. Now, whether we do or not remains to be seen, but it's like, oh fuck, like, I had a moment where I needed to sit down. I was like, oh shit, that'd be fucking, I was fucking around for like the first 3 quarters of this game, and then it's like we got to the 4th quarter and we won, and I was like, oh shit, oh shit, like that was the final score. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. But like sometimes the most serious thing could also be the most hilarious in the right context, where it's like that person was so serious with that statement, but that was hilarious. That was so funny. You saw their face, how serious they were. That was so funny. They were so serious, but it's just so hilarious because they were so far in the extreme. They almost like ended back around at silliness, right? It's like a whole circle, but you could say something extremely silly that could be so completely serious in a funny sort of way. I don't know what that would sound like or look like, but you know, we're going all the places, people. So anyways, let's talk about the final part so I can fucking go and eat and be done with these videos and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so ritual, altars. Okay, behind me is my altar. You can't really see it. Glass Onion was funny because I was just thinking about just Daniel Craig when he's like, he completely ruins Homeboy's game. Like, it's like, oh, did we start? And he's like, well, yeah, like, you know, whatever. And they completely, before they even like technically started, he had figured out the whole thing. He's like, oh, it was this and that. And gets up and he's explaining like, oh, see, and this was this. And like, here's all the clues. Like, he completely like ruined the whole dude's like whole weekend's murder mystery thing. It was just hilarious. But there's one point where he's like pointed to things and he's like kind of doing all these movements and it's kind of funny. He's like this, and he's like kind of leaning back and it's just really funny. Just I had to watch the scene again like a few times because I just found the whole just how it was filmed and just how he was explaining the whole mystery and breaking it down. It was just very funny to me. But yeah, let's talk about ritual, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the altars around the world or something like that. Let's talk about ritual. Okay, so ritual. So bring it all home. This is, you know, first of all, an altar. Just consider an altar like a nice portal, right? It's your mind's portal represented physically with objects. I know that sounds so sexy. I know. Ooh, it's my mind's portal physically represented with objects. Ooh, daddy. Oh man, you're getting my occult panties so wet. I know, it's so hot. But that's what it is, right? That's the purpose of it, right? That's why it's like you put ancestors on there, right? Because you're connecting with non-physical energy, right? But it's like you're using an intermediary to do this, right? Ultimately, we're doing this with our mind, but to aid in this process, right, symbolically, and also just kind of like us being kind of human ego people where we're like, well, we need a thing to represent my ancestors, right? I need like a picture or something. I can't just think of her thing, but you can. But it's like on the way to that, it's like you have a physical thing. You know, I might got my friend Aaron on there. I got my grandfather on there, you know, pictures, right? But it's a symbolic representation to connect with that energy, you know, no matter what it is, whatever I got on there, it's a symbolic, it's to connect with the energy symbolically through a physical form, right? And, you know, this could be, you know, through, you know, classic deities and things like that. This could be more personal where it's like, I have cacti on my altar because for me, cacti are a very personal symbol to me, a very important symbol for me, you know, for my own personal reasons I've determined. So I have them on there because they represent a certain thing. And maybe for you, tennis is a thing. So you have a little tennis racket or a tennis ball because it's something that, you know, you did with your siblings and your parents and you loved it and it's just a huge part of you. And so, you know, it brings you deep joy. So having a tennis racket or a tennis ball on your altar symbolizes your joy, right? And it's connecting with the joy and whatever, connecting with your siblings and your parents and etc., right? But as a certain symbolic energy that you're connecting with by having that certain thing on your altar, right? So it's a representation of, you know, what you want your mind to connect to. And then doing ritual is the process of further connecting with that energy through actions, through further symbols, right? Whether it's symbols on your altar or specific symbols for that ritual, right? You know, whether it's a solstice ritual, whether you're doing a ritual today where it's like, this is what's dying on December 31st. My love of Oreos, right? And you crush up an Oreo and you burn it or whatever. And it's like, what's reborn? My love of apples. And then you have an apple and you eat it. congratulations, you just did a little ritual. You just did a little spell for your burning of and burning off of your Oreo relationship and your rebirth of your Apple relationship, or whatever the case may be. It's like you do a little symbolic activity and actions around that, but the symbols and what the symbols mean to you is the most important part of that process. It necessarily doesn't even matter what you do, how you do it, what you say. It's what the symbols mean to you and your intentions with the symbols. That's the most important part. And then you do a whole bunch of, movements and this and, what I'm saying? You do a whole bunch of shit like that, and I'm being silly about it, but it's like, don't give it so much, just still keep that play, still keep that levity, even if like you're contacting demons and that sort of thing. You can't be joyful and contact demons. You can't just play around, and not in a callous, I'm just playing around and carelessly, right? We think of that way, but it's like you can mindfully play with things, right? That's what, having, I would say, beautiful sex is, beautiful erotic moments is mindful play. If you're in tune with your partner, you're in tune with their body and their mind and their emotions, and you touch them like this and it makes them feel like that and this and that's the other thing. It's mindfully playing. You're not careless with it, but you're playing, right? You're mindful of what's going on. You understand, because the situation, if you're in tune and in touch and with the breath of the situation, not here. Oh yeah, after we have sex, I'm gonna order a turkey sandwich. Oh, tomorrow I gotta go to the post office. Right? You're here in the moment. It's like when your hand's touching her leg or his leg, or you're stroking her hair. You're actually with the hair, right? You're almost, I would say, even one with the hair. You become the hair in that moment, right? You're not thinking about touching the hair. You're not like, oh, this hair feels soft. You're just in a blissful silence moment of experiencing the hair without filter, without a layer, without a certain thing like, this is me touching the hair, right? You're observing that, right? Maybe not in this moment, but you're really just there with the hair, right? I don't know what I was going with all that, being there with the hair. See, this is what happens, being there with the hair, being hair with the hair. But just mindfully playing with reality. Right, that's what a ritual is. You're just playing around, just playing around. Oh yeah, I got this energy, got the symbol. Hey, we're gonna transform into this. Just like, oh cool, okay. First, I visualize it like this. Ooh, it's color. It's brown. Ooh, yeah. Then it transforms. It transforms into this white light or whatever. You can do whatever the fuck you want. That's the beautiful thing about occult science. You can do what the fuck you want, but it all comes down to your mind. It all comes down to working with your body. Let me go back to body real quick. Something I left out. Working with your chakras. It's super, 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 not important. Just kidding. Super important. I was like, I can't say all those supers and be important. So, but, I would put on the same level as meditation, right? Working with your chakra emotional energy, right? That's in your body. And when I say body, this is physical body, emotional body, bodies, right? You know what I'm saying? Consciousness, okay. Consciousness, bodies, right? On the densest layer, which is our physical body, right? Where that's like Qigong, right? Although that can affect other layers and other bodies, right? And then chakras, that's like more of the emotional aspect, but there is a physical component as well. It works on many different layers, but specifically I want to bring up working with your chakras, the journey through the chakras. I like to think about it instead of you're climbing up the chakras to Kether, right? If it's the tree of life, I flip it upside down. We're climbing down to Kether. We're climbing down because it's like we have to climb down through our lower self, right? We have to deal with our lower self to get to Kether, right? Or you can even say, to going back to what we were saying before, where Malkuth is on one side and you're just walking across to Kether. Why would you even have to climb? Because climbing, it's like, oh, I got to climb down, I got to be careful. Or I got to climb up, I got to be careful. What if it's just walking across, right? Doesn't mean it's like, oh, don't step on that dog shit, right? As we're walking across, oh, there's a gap in the floor, be mindful of that. But it's just walking across, right? It's on the same plane, but we're just walking across. We're walking from one side to the other, right? But even that is kind of a misnomer because it's like we're not even going anywhere, right? But it's like our consciousness is transforming. So it's like a way to kind of conceptualize it is that we're going from here to there. We're going A to B, right? But it's like there's no B, there's no A. We're just here, and then we're also here. And that just seems so funny. It just seems so funny to say out loud, but that's what it is, folks. That's what it is. And it's like, this is where the extent of my knowledge has gotten me to like really understand that deeper and deeper now. Where it's like I conceptually understood it 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but now it's like I'm understanding it from like a practical standpoint about this sort of stuff, about like, you know, just our views and perspectives and how it's like it necessarily doesn't actually change, right? But just our consciousness expands, and it's like, oh, things have changed. But it's like, did they really change, or did our just view change? If anything, quote unquote, changed, you know. Anyways, so yeah, chakra work. Just working with your chakras and just learning about the archetypes of the chakras. There's a great book, Chakras and the Archetypes by, oh man, I don't remember the name of the woman, but it's called Chakras and the Archetypes, and it's fucking an excellent book. You know, just kind of talking about, because like because it talks about the negative archetype for each chakra and the positive archetype. And the negative archetype for the Muladhara chakra, you know, that's the first one that I started reading about, was like the wounded child or the victim, right? And or even what was it? It was the not the overworked mother, but it was like the over-sacrificing mother sort of thing. That's not how she put it, but that was another interpretation, because she recognized that was her, right? And she was like living out that archetype, and then when she realized it, she was like, nah, bitch, like, fuck that shit. I'm not living out this, because she, you know, it was like kind of, she was from like a traditional Jewish family, so there was a lot of like Jewish guilt if you're a Jewish mother and all that sort of stuff, and like, oh, you piece of shit, you're not helping your family, you piece of shit. So, you know, and just like, oh, you know, just a whole bunch of shit like that. But yeah, it's a very good book, Chakras and the Archetypes. But you know, there's lots of good books about chakras and the archetypes. You have to understand where your chakras are in balance. You know, it could be overactive or underactive, right? And it doesn't have any bearing on, oh, this one's fine, so the ones above it are fine, or this one's fine, and the ones below it fine. It could be all different sort of imbalances up the change, you know what I'm saying? Just because your throat chakra is, for you, balanced, you know, whatever that means for you, doesn't mean your heart chakra is on point, right? That's why it's like Muladhara is, the more I understand it, as much as, you know, I always go off on Malkuth and the Matrix and that sort of thing. That's why I call it Malkuth rather than the Matrix, because it's just a state, it's just one state of being, you know. Kether is another state of being, but it's like, you know, the idea is like connecting with Kether, but it's like, but I'm learning on Malkuth, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, Malkuth, you piece of shit. I'm going with Kether, right? Because it starts here. Always, it starts with our body. It starts with our physical body. It starts with our mind. It starts with where we are right now. Our tragedies, our triumphs, our fears, our expectations, our hopes. It starts with all that right now in this moment at any point in time. You know, so we can't dismiss Malkuth, as much as it's a fucking annoying sometimes, and we're like, god damn it, you dummies, or whatever. Oh my goodness, put on a blinker, right? These are the transformative moments, as much as we want to fucking reject them and be like, oh, whatever, right? But again, sometimes our rejecting of them puts them on a pedestal and we give them extra attention. We're like, oh, fucking A, you didn't put on a blinker. And then all day we're thinking about this person who didn't put on a blinker. Sounds like a lot of energy we're investing into someone not putting on a blinker. Not someone shot someone in the face or something, but, you know, oh, blinker? Okay. A lot of energy that could have been going somewhere else. But hey, do you, my friend, do you. So, we invest a lot of energy into places that, the return on investment isn't great. If we get any positive return on investment, but lots of times we don't. We only get a negative to return on investment because it was something we didn't invest in the first place. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, let's invest in fucking Enron. Enron. Shout out to Enron. That'd be a funny shirt to have. Enron. This came through. It's like you got an Enron shirt on. I feel people catch feelings. Mad people lost money and shit. But whatever. It's a reminder. Don't trust white males running businesses. Oh man. Hey, it is what it is, people. It is what it is. It is what it is. So, do that chakra work. So you can, just see what imbalanced archetypes you got going on, and work on them. Going back to what we're talking about, then with the occult rituals and spells, right? Because you can understand where it's like, oh, here's how. That's why it's like saying chakras are blocked. I think that's not necessarily the right way of putting it. I think it's more, balanced in the right way for a certain person, right? And that's kind of, for everyone's specific, their own journey, what they figure out what that means to them, right? Because I can't tell you, oh, yeah. Oh, Francine, yeah, here's how your chakra balance looks. It's like this and like that, like for example, there's a woman who she actually has a lot of great videos about the chakras, and just really kind of like I cried like when I watched the videos because it was so like, oh shit, like it really hit me, right? And so she has a website where she does consultations, and so she has different ones, ones for your chakras, right, helping you cleanse your chakras, right, balance your chakras, and so I was like, they're actually not too inexpensive because they're geared towards people in India. So like when you convert the rupees to U.S. dollars, it's, I thought her consultation in American dollars was going to be a lot more, but whatever. That's an aside. So anyways, so I got this one. It was like $13 where it's like email consultation where, buy it and then they ask you some questions, probably my birth dates and location and, stuff like that. And, kind of, it'd be probably certain things about me. And then they'll, I'm sure they have a certain scientific algorithm, and then it'll tell me not only like gemstones and crystals, that'll be good for me, but yantras and kind of a few other kind of, what we call it, not prognosis, but prescriptions from like an Ayurvedic Indian perspective to specifically help me. And that's why I started with the email one. As much as I want to do like a video consultation with them, I was like, you know what? I'll just start with this email one. I'll probably get the other ones eventually, but just start with the email and just see what works off of this email, right? Because I want to buy some gems. I was like, oh, I want to see what they say, and then try it, and then maybe it's like, you know what? I tried red carnelian for this. Didn't really, I don't know. Didn't really do much for me. That was my assessment. Or maybe it's like, but off of that, I tried the red jasper. Yeah, that was popping. Whatever. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what, for me, what the recommendations are for chakra balancing and things like that. So, anyway, chakra work. I just want to put a plug in there for chakra work, meditation, and chakra work. Two key components of one's own alchemy. And in addition to the body work and the subconscious work as well. So then ritual, right? And this is we're working with reality. We're doing rituals. We're doing spells using the symbolism of reality. And doing, stuff. Doing, things to manipulate reality, right? In this holographic universe, we can manipulate it. I know shit looks really solid. This microphone looks really solid. I look really solid. Hands look really solid. That wall behind me looks really, really solid. But it's actually not. It's actually a lot of space. It's a lot of moving energy. But the illusion is that it looks solid. It's perceived by us as solid. And this is what the enlightened ones are able to see. Like just like Neo in the Matrix. At some point he was like, oh, I could see the code and all this shit now. Right? That's seeing past the illusion. That's, you know, I don't know. That's like, I don't want to say a goal for the spiritual seeker, but to understand that, whether you see it or not, to like understand and know that. And you know, that all appearances are illusions, that just because something takes this form doesn't mean it's ugly and painful. And just because it takes this form doesn't mean it's exciting and wonderful, right? Because it's all an illusion. Right? And, you know, sometimes things are aligned with how they look, where someone has a beautiful symmetrical face and they also have a beautiful symmetrical spirit. That happens too. But keep in mind that all appearances are illusions, right? Sad people can be smiling and sad looking people can be smiling on the inside. You never know. All appearances are illusions. So, in working with the all appearances are illusions, this is why we do rituals. This is why we do spells, because we understand this is all illusory. We understand this is all out of our minds. We understand that we can manipulate this if our will is pointed along a certain line. And to that point, my last final books, to aid with that, work with a book like this, Encyclopedia of Spirits, which one could say spirits, deities, energies, whatever you want to call them, are just different parts and energies in our own minds, you know? And we could quibble, I would not quibble, about whether they exist independently, whether they exist solely in our minds, or maybe it's both, maybe it's neither. But the point is, we activate them and connect with them in our mind, and that's why it's like you want to wear a certain thing to activate certain energies, right? If you want to activate Demeter, well, what are Demeter's symbols? Oh, wearing a shawl. Oh, wearing a green clover. I have no idea. Let's look it up. Let's look it up while we're here to make a point about something. Well, I chew this crunchy apple. Let's look up Demeter. How is Demeter not in here? How is Demeter not in here? Unless, oh, okay, there she is. Okay, Demeter. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to talk about her attributes. Okay. So a torch, ear of wheat, a scythe, and a basket. Her sacred plants are barley, wheat, grains, poppies, pomegranates, pennyroyal. Creatures are pigs, horses, snakes, grasshopper, crane. Her number is 8. Offerings are, it says, do not give her wine. Okay. Sounds like a warning. So, do not give Demeter wine. She will be hanging from the chandeliers in the ethers. If you give her wine, that bitch go wild of the wine. So, oh no, they gave Demeter wine. Oh no. Oh God, she's not going to stop talking about scythes and pigs. Oh boy. We love you, Demeter. She accepts, eats the grain, and drinks mint-flavored barley water. Ooh, delicious. I love me some mint-flavored barley water. It's my favorite drink. When I go out to the club, yo, barkeep, give me that mint-flavored barley water. Mm-hmm. I send that to the lady down there. I'm like, hey, toots, here's some mint-flavored barley water, courtesy of Demeter. Ew. But yeah, those are our symbols, right? So if you wanted to energetically connect to the Demeter energy, which I don't know what she symbolizes, probably, I don't know, I feel like she's rebirth and fertility. I'm just guessing. But if you want to connect with the symbology and the energy of Demeter, you'd have those symbols around. You'd put those symbols in a ritual. You'd put those symbols on your altar because they represent Demeter to you, and that's a certain thing. And that's all it is, right? It's like you have taken something that's an ethereal energetic spiritual force, and it's like you have a physical representation in this realm to connect with that energy. And that's what it's all about. And lastly, I don't say this is a necessity, but have a magical diary, magical journal, a cult scientific notebook, a witch report, a witch diary, a wizard record keeping log, a sorcerer source guide, a grimoire, a mystical notebook, whatever you want to call it. I call this what do I call this? My magical journal, where you can record the rituals you do. And, what was happening? You could get so far into the weeds where you're like, what was the moon when I did this ritual? How was I feeling? How was I physically feeling, right? You could really write down a lot of the scientific information about okay, I did this on this night, on this day, it was cloudy. The moon was quarter moon Aries, blah, 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 blah. I was sad because my favorite pixie stick is no longer being carried anymore. As some context, but, I at least just write down the date and, if it's a full moon or something, I'll put some astrological context, some date context, but, I really won't go too in the weeds in terms of it, but, whatever. Let your thoughts guide you on what is best for you in that context. But the point is keeping track of this, especially things like tarot readings, right? Because you can keep track of the symbols that were shown to you, that were communicating to you on certain days when you ask certain questions. And specifically at that, I've noticed where it's like, let's say, later today, I'm going to do a tarot reading myself, a New Year tarot reading. And maybe initially, if I get something out of it, maybe there's something where it's like, not sure what that means. Not sure I get that. I'm not sure I get where that symbol, what the connection is. But a lot of times, maybe I come back to that reading a few months later, 6 months later, 4 months later, just some point. Maybe I've completely forgotten about it, completely forgotten about the cards and symbols. I look at it again, and I'm like, oh, shit. That was the symbol? I see now. I understand now. I got a little bit wider perspective on it now. Maybe when I initially saw it, I was looking real close up. Is it the symbol I got? Scrutinize it very closely. But then, you let go of it, move further and further away. And then you come back around it, and maybe you're looking at it from, this far away. And you're like, oh, I actually see the broader picture much more easy now. I kind of see the just the message, it was kind of cut off when I first looked at it, but now I see the missing sentences I couldn't see because I was looking too closely, or whatever the case may be. So this is why we do ritual, and we're doing it as a scientist, right? We do it as an experimenter. We don't do it, we're playing, we're experimenting, we're exploring, we're adventuring. We do it with a lighthearted energy because they're like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if I do a spell for Demeter, right, for this specific area? Let's find out. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. Maybe come back later. Okay, did a spell for Demeter, and oh wow, my crops, they grew more this spring, thanks Demeter. Or the case may be, or maybe it's more of a personal thing you're contacting Demeter for. Or connecting with Demeter, or accessing the Demeter energy is a better way of putting it. Anywho's. Oh, it's 2:23. Perfect. We're ending on that note because I got into everything, folks. Listen, I'll put the books down later. I'll put all this shit in the description. But yeah, that's it. Just tools for transformation. Get some books, meditate, do some body work, do some chakra work. Do some ritual occult science work. You know what I'm saying? Transform that energies. We out. Peace. Same foolish funk, same foolish monk, same foolish monk, right? Same foolish monk. All right, bye.